now setting their gaze on potentially scoring a political point and winning the political game. Several opposition leaders are stopping at nothing to dislodge the All Progressives Congress APC from power. 3 opposition leaders, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, former governors Nestor El-Rufai and Rotimi Amaechi, have criticized President Tinubu's government pledging to block his 2027 re-election. Meanwhile, northern elites, led by former governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarawa, urged the opposition coalition to form a new party to strengthen their challenge. The League of Northern Democrats now positions itself as a major force against President Tinubu's bid. Okay, 2 stories in one. Atiku Abubakar, Rotimi Amaechi, and other gladiators, they have all vowed, to wrestle President Tinubu out of power. How formidable will you describe, their intent? I'll start with DGKB.
Well, it's politics. All these rhetorics are expected. It's not really new. If not the fact that we are in the business of news, these are things that we should not even discussing at all. Because it's not... 2 things I've noticed. It's the fact that whoever and whenever people are out of power, they become moralists. They suddenly discover that there are poor people in Nigeria. They forgot that there are poor people when they were in government as ministers and governors for 24 years. It's now that I realize people are hungry. So it sparks of hypocrisy to me as a political reporter when I see people that I know are part and parcel of the system coming out now to be champions of the oppressed. It's just a game they play. And if the shoes are to be in the other foot, those in government today will play the same game. Maybe not with the same level of ferocity, but they will still play it the same way. I think we should not ignore it. Just take it as what it is, theater. This game will become serious next year when candidates have emerged. And we know those who can truly challenge the president for the post that he's holding. Until then, these are just grandstanders.
Grandstanders.
And hungry, people are hungry after just 2 years of power.
Okay, Kaidi. Do you think, looking at what happened over the weekend, the things the former River State governor said, the former Kaduna State governor said, the former VP said, and lots of people talking. Should the APC, do you think the APC and the president, should they be worried by the things said and the number of gladiators coming together, to say these things? Should they be worried? Or will you advise them to be worried?
Just for record, I love talking politics because that's the beat I covered for almost 1.5 decades. And so, like you said, these gladiators, we know how they move from this place to this place. To a large extent, we know their strengths, we know their weaknesses, and we know when it's no news. Technically speaking, what GKB says is that if we are not in the business of news, we will not pick this story. But there must be some, when you're looking for a story, you want to hear the opposition, you want to hear the ruling party for balance. So that's why it looks like news. But in politics, because sometimes when you cover politics, you're as good as a politician too, because you know how they think. Sometimes I remember advising a politician that, hey, this fight is lingering too much now. Why don't you just stoop to conquer? And the man said, hey, young man, this is not a church. This is not Oliver Goldsmith. She stooped to conquer. This is politics. Immediately you stoop, they will match you down. He said, you must always, just like this issue of ground rent. No, Wike must not have the last say. That's where the problem is. But the president, who is bigger than all of you, has said, I'm giving you 14 days. So they should just ignore Wike now and listen to the president.
Exactly. And do what he says.
And do what he says. That's just by the way.
Yes.
So back to your question. There are basic things, I learned this from politicians, that when we are forming a coalition, when you're forming a merger, there are things that will make people cede power to you. Number one, your political capital. how much of followership do you command, either with your resources or with your leadership influence. So if you call an El-Rufai today, he's not likely to win an election over Ubasani in Kaduna. If you call an Amaechi today, he's not likely to have more influence than a Wike, you understand, when it comes to politics. Then the second thing they consider is how deep your pocket is.
Yeah, sure.
And whether we pretend or not, you cannot compare someone who is out of power and somebody who is in power. That's one of the major setbacks that Atiku also suffered. He would have preferred that there was a Wike who was working with him when he was, you know, contesting against Ashiwaju, you understand, who had more parties of governors in power, and all, you know, Atiku could depend.
And the structure of the party.
Exactly. So all he could depend was just the governor of Delta State, who probably, you know, supported a lot of the, and that governor is no longer in the picture.
Exactly.
So technically speaking, when you look at all these indices, it can only take magic, or in quotes.
So in short, there's nothing to be worried about.
It's not news.
Okay.
However,
in
politics, one vote, a serious politician will not take it for granted. So whatever insignificant, infinitesimal, minute, trust me, the man at the end of affairs would not take them.
Absolutely.
Will not take them with a pinch of salt. You will take them very serious.
Oh, absolutely. Now let's look at the other side of this story.
Okay.
Former Kano State Governor Ibrahim Shakara, he gave conditions before joining the coalition. But talk to it. Tell us about the conditions given.
Malam Shakara is one of the people that I really admire, and he was to be admired. Because he was not your typical politician. He was a teacher for a long time, and he had the people following him. But the moment I heard about the League on Northern Democrats, I know we are going back to what did. I think people from a particular part of the country assume that Nigeria is at a standstill.
Okay, GKB, I apologize. Okay, we have Inik calling in from Abuja. Inik, thank you so much. Ini, thank you so much for calling in. Ini, go ahead. Okay. All right, Ini's not ready for us.
So when they started the League for Northern Democrats, they were insisting that was not for 2027 election. They're just trying to reimagine what democracy is. Democracy is the rule of the majority, while the minority, there is no new science about it. And the Yoruba will say,
definition has not changed.
It's not changed in 3,000 years. The Yoruba will say, Kosawo Kono Awewa. He's for
break it down.
So that's how I said the game that people from a particular part of the country play sometimes make us think that either they are playing to the gallery or just assume that we are.
All right, GKB, we have Ini back with us again. Ini, go ahead. Oh. All right, Ini.
So that's what I think. But to answer your original question, the party in power is not really sleeping. And I think they do more. They do more damage by simply removing the legs that the opposition normally will rely on to raise the resources. So once they say we are doing coalition, the party in power will look at, okay, where are they going to get the resources? And they start
go after all of
cutting those legs. Oh my word. So I'm
Sorry,
sure.
GKB, let me add, they don't just take the financiers, they also take away the speakers, the wallahs of this world.
All right. Okay, let's also look at the individuals. I mean, we saw Amaechi there.
I've explained to you now.
I want. Do you think
in the boxing ring?
I want to say that. Do you think they are doing this for the interest of Nigeria or just self-ambition without anything to offer?
You know, I told you something behind the scene. You want me to expose you?
I want us to talk. This is a table of journalists, okay?
Okay, let GKB help us.
GKB, let me start with you. Looking at the things they say, and they spoke quite passionately. I want to know. Are they doing it for the interest of Nigeria or just self-ambition?
As long as they are in power, it's for the sake of Nigeria. As long as they are not in power, they will fight for power for the sake of Nigeria. As long as there is power. Power is
The
factor.
currency.
That everybody so forget. Look, I worked in Port Harcourt for a while. I know Rotimi Amaechi fairly well, not as much as Wike. And I know that Port Harcourt is a very small set of people of our age controlling rivers at a point in time. The CG Okochas, the Wikes and all that. And they're all in their 60s now.
Please, people of your age,
People in the early 60s or late 50s control rivers for almost since they chased out Odi. Rotimi Amaechi is a lightweight in Rivers State today. Because even as governor, Wike was locking him in State House. I cannot come out. And Wike will tell you to your face that Rotimi Amaechi will run away at the earliest sign of trouble. That's Amaechi.
Okay.
Atiku has made up his mind that we die here. As long as there's a breath in him, he will continue to try to be president.
All right, gentlemen. It's a fine place for us to leave it. Okay. I wish we would have more time to still discuss this, but we just have to keep the time. Thank you so much, Kadiladin.
Always a pleasure.
For coming on the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. GKB, as always, thank you so much. Appreciate you for doing this with us. And that's all.